we do want to be seen as the trusted energy resource.
Right.
That when people have questions about charging, when they have questions about how do these work and does it fit my lifestyle, that we have folks available to help answer those questions.
This is Middle Tennessee Electric's Plugged In podcast. This podcast focuses on the world of electric vehicles. It is for all EV enthusiasts, whether you are an early adopter and have been driving an EV for years, or you're just starting your research, this podcast is for you.
Hello, I'm Brandon Wagner.
And I'm Amy Byers, and welcome again to MTE's Plugged In podcast. And today is part 2 of our conversation with Brad Gibson, who is the Chief Cooperative Business Officer for Middle Tennessee Electric. So we had such a fun time during our last podcast that I was like, I'm not ready to stop. We still have questions. So we are continuing on our drive in your new Volkswagen ID4.
The range is just too long, so we can keep going.
That's right. We
That's
can
right.
just drive all day long. That's great. I kind of want to shift gears a little bit. So
I can't do that. There's no transmission in this.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That was actually really good there. So, we talked in the last podcast about kind of, EVs in our blood and or not EVs, but electricity's in our blood. And so it was a natural fit for us to turn toward electric vehicles. And that's us personally. But I want to talk about Middle Tennessee Electric.
Yeah.
Middle Tennessee Electric, obviously, we want to be what our members need us to be. So we want to be the professional they turn to for all things that encompass electricity, and obviously an EV is part of that mix. Yeah. So we've been, as a company, very early adopters. I know you and Brandon, y'all have been researching this long before this big push, because EVs were around 10 years ago, and I know the utility industry were very early adopters 10 or so years ago as well. But let's talk about today. Let's talk about kind of what your thought is, and Brandon as well, on this new EV initiative that's out there and MTE's role in that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked that question because, I've heard a little bit of chatter on this topic, and some folks asking, well, why is Middle Tennessee Electric pushing EVs? And, one clarification I would want to make is that we're certainly not pushing EVs. The industry is making this shift, and we get a lot of questions from folks. And we want folks to know, as they have questions, that we have expertise to help answer those questions. And so I think a big difference is we want to be very present and available as people make this transition, because it certainly is coming for a lot of folks and for many auto manufacturers. But certainly we respect the folks' decisions that want to continue with an ICE vehicle for the foreseeable future as well. So I want to clarify that, and I think that's important. But again, to your point, Amy, we do want to be seen as the trusted energy resource.
Right.
That when people have questions about charging, when they have questions about how do these work and does it fit my lifestyle, that we have folks available to help answer those questions.
And, we, as always, to be that expert, we've got to educate our employees, right? We got to start in-house, get us up to date, get the people in place like Brandon that are going to do the research. But then, as you know, I think we've all experienced this when we go to the grocery store with our MTE shirts on, they're going to ask us a wide variety of questions. So we do want to make sure that the employees that aren't necessarily dealing with the programs directly are educated. And so I know one thing that was unique that we started was allowing the employees to kind of take the EVs that we had, that the company owned, out to ride.
That's right.
If somebody stops you and say, hey, do you know anything about electric vehicles? The employees have the option to take it out for the weekend, take it home, ride around in it, and then you can be able to answer that question. Yeah, I've driven one.
That's right. So one of the programs for the EVs we have in our fleet today is you can, as an employee, sign up and make sure we verify you have a driver's license and insurance coverage, so that you can take it as really you're checking that vehicle out for the weekend. And unlike a normal day when we have real strict rules around who can be in the vehicle and follow all those pieces, we're encouraging them to try it that weekend like it's your family vehicle. So take it to the ball field, take it to church, take it and figure out how it fits and where it doesn't fit, because it really builds their confidence and leads to a lot of good questions for us to think about how we would answer when they bring it back and give us feedback on it.
Right. And I think it's been a very successful program. We have had several employees that have a wide range of EVs.
That's right. We're definitely in the double digits now.
There you go. So, now we've educated ourselves, and so now we want to turn to our members and help them answer their questions. So can you tell me, and Brandon, you jump in as well, because I know you're very active in it. Of course, we've got these podcasts, which we've just recently started, but what are some of the other programs and incentives that we're doing around the EV initiative?
Yeah, well, I'll quickly turn to Brandon because he is our expert, but let me first say Brandon's idea of an EV car club is something that has just been really bringing a lot of opportunity for us to engage in folks that have questions and a passion around EV. And so if you haven't checked out the EV car club, it's for folks that they don't necessarily own EVs, but they have questions, they're intrigued, they want to learn, they want to be around folks that can help educate them. I think that's a really great place for people to explore that in a completely different way. Additionally, and Brandon, let me turn to you to talk a little bit about our incentive program, because you can do level 1 charging, but folks that are electing to put level 2 chargers in, or people that are building new homes, there's an incentive that can be coupled with a TVA incentive as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So if you have an existing home and you're putting in a level 2 charger, you can fill out a very simple one-page form, and you'll get a $50 bill credit on your electric bill. And then if you're building a house, we're encouraging home builders to put in level 2 outlets, and we'll give them an incentive. And as Brad said, TVA has the same opportunity. So these builders have an opportunity to not only cover their cost on the installation, but actually make a little money on each home. And I appreciate you saying that about the car club. I think anytime you're trying to build a strategy or create a solution for folks, part of it is looking at data, but part of it is looking at user experience. So every time I meet someone in the car club or talk to an employee that buys an EV, their story is really important for us to identify pain points of EV ownership. And we can start creating opportunities for us to play a role to help make that an easier experience for them. So, part of the car club is not always just us telling folks what we see, but also hearing what they're experiencing. Because as much as we can research, we're never going to be able to experience what they are.
That's awesome.
And so, if anybody listening out there, they want to know more about what we're doing in the EV world, they can go to mte.com/drive-EV. Well, Brad, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to ride around with us today. This has been very, very informative, so I really do appreciate it. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in to the Plugged In podcast. And, if you have topics you want us to discuss, if you have any questions, you can email us at evcarclub@mte.com. And until next time, plug in, power up, and drive safe.